Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and we're ready to jump right into today's biggest developments, all based on the fantastic source material you shared. And yeah, a big thank you to StockTelescope.com for providing these sources for our deep dive today. Really appreciate it. So what we've got here is a stack of recent news summaries. They cover global markets, geopolitics, AI. Quite a mix, actually, all dated today, Friday, June 13th, 2025. Our mission, like always, is to cut through it all for you, find the important stuff, the aha moments, and make sense of a really packed day, quickly and efficiently. So get comfortable. Let's get into it. Oh, and before we dive in, if you don't want to miss future deep dives like this one, just hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest way to stay in the loop. Okay, let's unpack this.
It really is a packed day. And the biggest news right off the top sent some serious ripples out, didn't it? Globally and in the markets.
Absolutely. The sources lead with it. Israel's air assault against Iran, reported today, June 13th. And the reports say targets included nuclear sites, key personnel.
Yeah, and the sources are highlighting a really stunning outcome from that. The reported killing of Hossein Salami, head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards.
Wow.
Along with other leaders and scientists, too. I mean, that's a major development.
It is. And the market reaction was immediate. CNBC sources noted futures were down sharply this morning.
Right, even though the main indices actually finished up yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. But this morning, Dow futures tumbling 375 points pre-market.
And it just shows you, doesn't it, how fast a geopolitical shock translates into market volatility. It's almost instant.
So which sectors felt it most?
Well, the sources, like Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal, they point straight to the airlines. Stocks plummeted globally.
Makes sense with Middle East airspace closures happening right away.
Exactly. Sources mention American Airlines, AAL, down like 4%, United, UAL, down maybe 6%, all pre-market.
Okay, so airlines down. But some sectors must have gone up.
Predictably, yes. CNBC highlights oil and defense firms gaining. Military contractors, think Lockheed Martin, LMT, and RTX Corp, RTX, they were up over 4% pre-market.
Okay.
And oil stocks, too. Chevron, CVX, Exxon, XOM, they gained almost 3% pre-market.
And the oil price itself?
That's the big one. Sources say oil surged over 7% right after the strikes.
Wow, 7%.
Yeah. And that immediately sparks fears. You know, regional escalation, disruption to supply. Middle East oil is just critical. It shows you how linked security and energy markets really are.
It really does. One event thousands of miles away, and you see these specific stocks moving like crazy within hours. That interconnectedness.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What other market movers or strategy shifts did the sources pick up on beyond that immediate reaction?
Well, there's some positive news, too. Reuters highlighted Chime's IPO. The digital bank, ticker CHYM.
Right, how did that go?
It surged, like really surged, 59% in its Nasdaq debut.
59%.
Yeah, opened at $43 after pricing at $27. That gives it, what, an $18.4 billion valuation right out of the gate? That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially for fintech lately. Things have been kind of quiet.
Exactly. This could potentially, revive some interest in fintech listings. Maybe a positive signal for others thinking about going public. Could be a turning point. We'll see.
Interesting. Okay, what else on the corporate front?
Well, this is pretty interesting. The Wall Street Journal sources say some real heavyweights are looking at stablecoins. We're talking Walmart, Expedia, even Amazon.
Stablecoins, why would they do that?
The thinking, according to the sources, is cutting costs. These companies pay billions in card processing fees every year.
Right.
So if they issue their own stable coins, pegged to the dollar probably, they could maybe bypass Visa, MasterCard, cut those fees way down, and speed up payments.
Huh. That's a big strategic play.
It is, but, there are hurdles, regulation, obviously. And will customers actually want to use a Walmart coin or an Amazon coin? That's a big question. It's a bet on blockchain for core operations.
Definitely something to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, what about Apple? Reuters had a few notes, right?
Yeah, a couple things. First, sources say Apple actually led China's smartphone market in May. And globally, iPhone sales were up 15% year over year in April and May. Pretty solid.
Okay.
And the other thing was about their supplier, Foxconn. Apparently, 97% of the iPhones Foxconn makes in India are being exported directly to the U.S.
97%. From India straight to the U.S.
That's what Reuters reported. And you look at that, and it seems pretty clear, right? It's about navigating trade issues, potential U.S. tariffs on goods from China.
Makes sense. Shifting production even a bit and sending it direct. Smart move.
It's part of that whole supply chain diversification strategy we're seeing.
Okay, switching to finance jobs for a sec. Bloomberg mentioned Apollo Global Management.
Right, APO. They're apparently pausing interviews and offers for their 2027 investment banking class.
Why is that?
The stated reason, according to the source, is they want these recruits to get more early career experience first. It's a small note, but maybe says something about the entry-level talent market in banking right now.
Got it. Any other quick company hits?
Yeah, a couple. Reuters says Tesla, TSLA, raised U.S. prices on the Model S and Model X by $5,000. Follow some upgrades they did.
Okay.
Also from Reuters, Novo Nordisk, NVO, is back on top in Europe. Most valuable company again, market cap around $368 billion, passing SAP.
It's all about the weight loss drugs, right?
Mostly, yeah. Huge demand globally for Ozempic and Wegovy. It's really propelled their value.
Okay, while they're surging, Nvidia's facing a challenge. CNN had something.
Yeah, Nvidia. They're apparently going to remove China entirely from their forecasts going forward.
Wow, entirely. Wow.
It's those U.S. chip export restrictions. CNN sources say it's already cost Nvidia about $2.5 billion in lost revenue from China.
Ouch. That's a big hit, even for them.
It is. Shows how geopolitics hits even the hottest companies. It's a real headwind.
And speaking of tech issues, Google Cloud had an outage.
Yeah, GOGL happened Thursday, apparently caused pretty widespread problems.
Yeah.
Spotify, Discord, Cloudflare, even parts of Amazon Web Services were affected, according to CNN.
That cascade effect when core stuff goes down.
Exactly. Sources say it's resolved now, but yeah, a reminder of dependencies.
Okay, one more market item. JBS, the meat packer.
Right, world's largest meat packer. The Wall Street Journal says they plan to list directly on the New York Stock Exchange starting today.
They weren't listed here before.
They were listed in Brazil. This is a shift to the NYSE, aiming to get broader investor access. Makes sense, actually, since the sources say over half their $80 billion in sales now come from North America.
Right, listing where your business and investors are. Okay, let's pivot now to artificial intelligence, always moving fast. What did the sources highlight today?
First up, more competition in the AI chip space. Critical area. CNBC sources say AMD showcased details on their next-gen AI chips launching next year.
Okay, AMD stepping up.
And here's the kicker. OpenAI has already committed to using them.
Oh, interesting. A big win for AMD.
Definitely. These new chips apparently promise lower power costs, which is huge for data centers running these massive AI models. They're aiming right at NVIDIA's GPUs in that hyperscale market.
So the rivalry heats up. NVIDIA versus AMD in the AI data center.
It looks that way. Though, like we said, NVIDIA's active elsewhere, too.
Right. What about Meta? They made a big move, too.
Huge move. According to CNBC, Meta is investing $14.3 billion.
Billion with a B.
Yep. $14.3 billion for a 49% non-voting stake in a company called Scale AI.
Scale AI, okay.
And they didn't just invest. They hired Scale AI's CEO, Alexander Wang, to lead Meta's own superintelligence efforts.
Wow, so they bought a big chunk and took the leader.
Pretty much. It signals they're really serious about accelerating their AI development, grabbing top talent in tech. A major play.
Okay. AI chips, Meta's big investment. What else? Anything unusual.
How about AI-powered toys?
Toys? Seriously?
Yeah, Reuters reports Mattel, Barbie and Hot Wheels. They've partnered with OpenAI.
The ChatGPT folks.
The very same. They plan to launch their first AI-powered toy later this year, trying to innovate, boost sales. Sources say demand's been soft and costs are up.
Oh, AI toys. Wonder what that'll look like.
It's definitely an interesting expansion of AI into consumer goods. Mattel's also using ChatGPT Enterprise internally for operations, sources say.
Okay, so AI and toys. What about funding for AI startups? Still hot.
Seems like it. The New York Times sources report that some big VC firms, TPG, Sequoia, Fidelity, are planning to invest $250 million in Elon Musk's company, XAI.
Okay, $250 million. How's that happening?
Through a tender offer, apparently, buying shares from existing holders. And the valuation they're talking about, $113 billion.
Whoa, $113 billion for XAI.
That's the reported figure. Reflects that intense investor excitement, maybe hype around AI right now.
Definitely a number that makes you look twice. Okay, anything else on AI infrastructure?
Yeah, bringing it back to Nvidia again. Reuters sources say they're partnering with Deutsche Telekom in Germany.
What are they doing?
Building Europe's first industrial AI cloud, aiming for 2026. Nvidia is supplying 10,000 chips for it.
10,000 chips.
Yeah.
Just for that.
Yeah, it's a big project. Shows Nvidia is still pushing hard globally, building out infrastructure in key regions like Europe, even with those China headwinds we talked about.
Right. diversifying their bets. Okay, let's broaden out again. What other significant global and U.S. news did the sources cover today? Give us the wider picture.
Well, tragically, in world news, CNBC reported yesterday on an Air India jet crash.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sources indicate a really high death toll, at least 241 people. Just one known survivor, apparently.
That's awful. What kind of plane?
A Boeing 787 Dreamliner. And the sources note this is reportedly the first fatal incident involving a 787. The cause is under investigation, obviously.
Wow, first fail for the Dreamliner.
Yeah.
That's significant. Okay, turning to the U.S. news and politics, and just reporting what the sources say here, staying neutral.
Right. The Wall Street Journal reports the House narrowly passed a $9.4 billion rescissions bill.
Remind us what rescissions means again.
It's basically canceling spending that was already approved. This bill, according to the sources, cuts funds for things like foreign aid, NPR, PBS, and HIV/AIDS relief.
And it passed narrowly.
Yeah, highlighting those ongoing budget battles in Congress. Sources mention proponents talked about needed cuts, critics worried about the impact.
Okay. What else? NPR had something about D.C.
Yeah, sources say D.C. is hosting a military parade on Saturday, June 14th. First one since '91, apparently. It marks the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary.
Okay.
And the sources note it coincides with President Trump's 79th birthday.
Got it. Any legal or protest news?
The Associated Press reported an appeals court stopped a judge's order. It would have made President Trump give National Guard control back to California.
So the Guard stays deployed?
For now, yes. Reportedly still deployed in L.A. amid immigration protests. Shows that federal versus state tension.
And Reuters mentioned an incident with a senator.
Yeah, Senator Alex Padilla from California. Sources say he was detained and handcuffed by federal agents during a Department of Homeland Security press event. Apparently sparked quite a bit of criticism, according to the reports.
Okay. Any travel snags?
Another one, yeah. The New York Times reported a JetBlue flight, JBLU, rolled off the runway landing in Boston.
They were hurt.
Thankfully, no injuries reported, sources say. Flights were stopped for a bit. JetBlue's investigating.
Okay. And finally, a notable passing.
Yes, David H. Murdoch. The New York Times reported his death at 102, billionaire investor, longtime chairman of Dole Foods.
Dole, right. Big name.
Very. Sources describe him as self-made, built wealth in real estate, corporate takeovers like Castle and Cooke, then Dole. Also highlighted his big investment, like $500 million, in nutritional research later in life, a major figure in business for a very long time.
Absolutely. Okay, let's wrap things up with a quick look at recent earnings and IPOs from the source material.
Sure. For earnings, sources listed Adobe, ADBE, revenue $5.87 billion, up over 10%, beat expectations. EPS $5.06, up almost 13%, also a beat.
Good numbers for Adobe. Who else?
RH, formerly Restoration Hardware, revenue $814 million, up almost 12%, but that actually missed estimates by a little bit. Their EPS of 13 cents did beat expectations, though.
Okay, a mixed bag for RH and IPOs this week.
Sources confirmed one for today. ARO Group Holdings, ARO, they're a drone manufacturer, aerospace company.
Yeah.
TTM revenue around $87 million, but year-over-year growth, over 100%.
Wow, 100% growth. Okay.
And estimated for today as well, Geelong Holding Limited, JLHL, Chinese engineering services firm. TTM revenue about $25 million with decent growth around 46% year-over-year.
Okay. Phew, that was a lot. We covered a huge amount of ground today, pulling straight from those sources you sent over. Geopolitics, shaking markets, airlines, oil.
Yeah, then the corporate strategy stuff, stable coins, Apple's moves, AI investments.
Right, Meta's big play, AI toys even. Plus the U.S. news, the tragic crash, market listings.
Yeah.
It's a lot to track.
It really is. And hopefully diving into the sources like this helps you see the connections, how one event ripples outwards, how tech trends are pushing companies, how everything sort of fits together even when it seems chaotic.
That's exactly the goal. Cut through the noise, pull out the key details for you, connect those dots. So as you think about all this, here's something to mull over. We saw today how quickly a single geopolitical shock can rattle markets. How does that kind of immediate, almost gut reaction volatility square with the slower, more strategic shifts companies are making in areas like AI or payments? Which force wins out in the long run? Just something to consider. What stood out most to you today? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. It was definitely a busy news day, and we really appreciate you spending the time with us to make sense of it. And one last reminder, the best way to catch our next deep dive is to subscribe. We'll be back soon to unpack more crucial source material.